Hi everybody, I hope this video finds you all doing well, and I hope you all had a nice weekend. As you can see, I'm in a different place because my computer is now at the computer doctor because there's something really wrong with it. So I'm in Mr. Trudeau's office, and he kindly let me use his work computer to do this video today. So thank you. That is who I am grateful to today, is Mr. Trudeau, for letting me use his computer. And he took a little break from work so I could do this. So let's start with the core practice. Everybody find a space where you can relax, close your eyes, and take deep breaths. All right, good job. So as I said, I am grateful to Mr. Trudeau today so that we could finally read our Ramona. So we're going to keep going with that. On Friday, we left off where she was cat sitting for Claude. So let's find out what happens. Now that Claude had made it clear to the family that he was going to set the rules for his treatment, he turned into a mostly agreeable cat. And as Ramona had predicted, Roberta was fascinated by a creature smaller than she was. She crawled after him, patted his fur, squealed with pleasure. Claude did not seem to mind. If she was too rough or pulled his tail, he simply retired to the hole in his kitty condo. Ramona, who had hoped someone would go with her to the park so she could work on a new set of calluses, now felt her life was full of chores. She washed Claude's dish, changed his water, even though he drank from the toilet, served his meals, brushed his hair off the couch, brushed Claude himself so he wouldn't shed so much, watched him when Roberta was crawling around on the floor. She began to look forward to Claude's going home. Then, late one afternoon, when Beezus was at Abby's house and Ramona was sitting on the floor keeping one eye on Roberta and Claude and her other eye on a book, Mrs. Quimby said, "Do you think you could watch Roberta while I drive over and pick up Beezus? I'll only be gone for a few minutes." "Sure, Mom." Ramona felt a ripple of pleasure. She had been promoted from cat sitter to babysitter. She was proud that her mother finally trusted her. "Of course I mean, you're sure?" asked Mrs. Quimby. "Of course I'm sure. I watch her all the time," said Ramona, and added words she had heard Beezus speak so often. "Mom, you worry too much." "That's what mothers are for," said Mrs. Quimby as she went out the door. "Now you be a good girl," Ramona instructed her baby sister, who was sitting on the floor holding her precious little blanket against her face. Roberta looked agreeable to being a good girl. She pulled a magazine off the coffee table, tearing the cover off as it fell to the carpet. "Ee!" squealed Roberta. So delighted with her accomplishment, she dropped her blanket. With both hands, she rumpled a few pages, a sound that disturbed Claude, who was napping under the window. "No, no, Roberta," said Ramona. "Don't hurt the nice magazine." Roberta had seen her mother leave. She gave Ramona a "you're not my mother and I'm not going to stop" look, and rumpled a few more pages. She did not intend to mind her sister, not when she had invented a new game. She tore off another page and took a bite. "No, no, Roberta," cried Ramona. "Icky, nasty. Put in Ramona's hand." Roberta's game was getting better. She opened her mouth and let soggy paper fall into Ramona's hand. "Ick," said Ramona. "Good girl." She pulled the magazine away from Roberta and tossed it on the coffee table. Then she threw the wet, chewed-up paper into the cold fireplace. While Ramona was doing this, Claude began to cough, a hacking, gagging cough. Hairballs, thought Ramona, stricken. She hadn't brushed him enough. He was going to throw up right there on the carpet, and she would have to clean it up. There was... Claude hacked harder. There was the ripping sound of Roberta tearing up more paper. She'd managed to pull the magazine off the coffee table again. At least tearing up a magazine would keep her busy for a while. "Hang on, Claude," cried Ramona as she opened the front door. She seized the cat around his heaving middle and, in spite of his weight, managed to carry him outside, down the steps, and set him on the shaggy winter grass. She started back to Roberta. But what if Claude ran off? What would she do if she lost Jeremy's cat? She decided that Roberta, busy with the magazine, was safe for a few seconds. She returned to Claude, hung on to him to make sure he wouldn't get away, and ordered, "Spit it out, Claude!" while she worried about what her mother and Beezus, they were due any minute, would say if they found her outside with the cat instead of inside with Roberta. With one last cough, Claude freed himself of the hairball. "Thanks," muttered Ramona as she started to lug him into the house. Claude had a different idea. He struggled out of her grasp and ran back into the house without any help from her. "Dumb cat," said Ramona. "If you didn't wash so much, you wouldn't get hairballs." She found Claude sitting on the carpet, washing just as Roberta, leaving her blanket behind, crawled toward his uninhabited kitty condo. Before Ramona could reach her, she stuck her head inside the lower hole to see what was inside. "Roberta!" cried Ramona. What if her mother and Beezus walked in now? Roberta sneezed and began to cry. The inside of the kitty condo was dark, scary, and full of cat hair. She did not like it one bit. Ramona grasped her little sister around the waist and pulled. Roberta, frightened at being tugged, screamed harder. Claude stopped washing long enough to look over his shoulder with disapproval. Claude did not care for noise. There she is. Oops. With her head in the kitty condo. "It's all right, Roberta," Ramona tried to sound soothing as she pulled. Roberta screamed harder, her cries muffled by the walls of the scratching post. Ramona held her breath when she heard a car and let it out when the car did not turn out to be the Quimby's driveway. She did not want her mother and Beezus to find Roberta breathing cat hair with her head stuck in a hole. "What do I do now?" Ramona thought desperately as she gently stroked Roberta back to calm her. There, Ramona. There. Ramona will get you out." But how? Screaming, Roberta frantically beat her little feet on the carpet and pushed at the scratching post with her hands. "What if she smothers?" thought equally frantic Ramona. "Should I call 911? Firemen would come and save her, wouldn't they? They often saved people on TV." She started for the phone. But she isn't going to smother, Ramona suddenly realized. Not if she's screaming. She has to breathe to scream, and she must be breathing hard for all that noise she's making. Once more, Claude paused in his washing to disapprove. A cat needed peace and quiet, especially when his fur had been rumpled. "I've got to think," Ramona told herself, "fast before Mother comes home. If Roberta's head went into the hole, it should come out. What was different?" Roberta was not crying when she stuck her head in the hole. That was what was different. Her mouth was closed. Now it was open. Her chin was in the way. All Ramona had to do was get Roberta to stop crying. But how? Then Ramona had an inspiration. She said as cheerfully as she could manage when she was so frightened, "Where's Roberta?" Her sister always enjoyed the peekaboo game. Roberta's answer was to beat her feet harder and go on screaming. Ramona could see her idea was not going to work. She would have to think of something else. She heard another cat. Was it? Or another car. Was it? No, it wasn't the Quimby car. She tried to think what else amused Roberta. Then it came to her. Mother Goose rhymes. Ramona gently rubbed her sister's back, put her mouth close to her shoulder, and began softly. 3 little kittens. Roberta's feet stopped pounding on the carpet. Encouraged, Ramona continued. Lost their mittens. Roberta stopped crying. She must be listening. Ramona went on reciting as she gently tugged at Roberta's shoulders. Lost your mittens, you naughty kittens, then you shall have no pie. Meow, meow. That was Roberta's favorite part of the rhyme. Ramona carefully pulled her sister's head out of the hole and went limp with relief. Then she hugged the baby, who was at the moment the most precious person in the whole world. Roberta snuggled against Ramona, who finished the rhyme. No, you shall have no pie. Roberta was pleased. Momo, she said. Ramona kissed her sister. Momo was Roberta's way of saying Ramona. She set Roberta down, handed her the little blanket, ran for a Kleenex, wiped her nose, and threw all the torn pages in the fireplace. Then, as she heard the Quimby car pull into the driveway, she picked up her book. Roberta was holding her blanket against her face with one hand while she sucked the thumb of her other hand and watched Claude carefully wash the tip of his tail. I did it, thought Ramona. I babysat. I was responsible. Worn out by her responsibility, she opened her book and pretended she'd been reading all along. But she was thinking. One more day, and Claude would go home. I can see that the three of you got along just fine, commented Mrs. Quimby as she came into the room. Yes, and you were gone a long time, answered Ramona. Mrs. Quimby glanced at her watch. Only 15 minutes. There was more traffic than I expected. Only 15 minutes. It had seemed like hours to Ramona. Roberta looks ready for a nap, said Mrs. Quimby as she picked up the baby. Oopsie daisy, and carried her off to her room. Ramona laid down her book and watched Beezus take off her jacket and unwind her muffler. I was just thinking, she said, and paused. Good for you, said Beezus. Ramona ignored this and said, I was just thinking, how do you get to be a cheerleader? And that's the end of the chapter. Remember that Beezus told Ramona that she looked more like a cheerleader than a babysitter. And I think Ramona's really considering that now because I don't think she had a very good time watching Roberta. So I hope you guys have a nice rest of your day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.